Chapter 7. Control and Coordination. Hello children. Today we will be discussing about control and coordination in living beings. A cat running, children playing on swings, buffaloes chewing cud, these are not movements caused by growth. The cat may be running because it has seen a mouse. Not only that, we also think of movement as an attempt by living organisms to use changes in their environment to their advantage. Plants grow out into the sunshine. Children try to get pleasure and fun out of swinging. Buffaloes chew cud to help break up tough food so as to be able to digest it better. When bright light is focused on our eyes or when we touch a hot object, we detect the change and respond to it with movement in order to protect ourselves. If we think a bit more about this, it becomes apparent that all this movement, in response to the environment, is carefully controlled. In keeping with the general principles of body organization in multicellular organisms, specialized tissues are used to provide these control and coordination activities. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to understand nervous system in animals, coordination in plants, hormones in animals.
Human nervous system. The nervous system is essentially the body's electrical wiring. It is composed of nerves, which are cylindrical bundles of fibers that start at the brain and central cord and branch out to every other part of the body. The nervous system in humans can be divided into two main parts, namely, the central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. It controls center of the body. The peripheral nervous system consists of the cranial nerves arising from the brain and spinal nerves arising from the spinal cord. The automatic nervous system comprises of all the nerves present in the involuntary organs like heart, stomach, lungs, etc. Functions of the nervous. The nervous system consists of the brain, the spinal cord, and a huge network of nerves that are spread throughout the body. The nervous system is responsible for sending, receiving, and processing messages in the form of chemical signals called impulses. There are three general functions of the nervous system in man and animals. Number 1. Sensing specific information about external and internal conditions. In the example above, this is seeing your friend. Number 2. Integrating that information. This is the understanding of the information coming from the eyes. Number 3. Issuing commands for a response from the muscles or glands. This is the reaction of walking towards him. Helps maintain homeostasis. The nervous system provides us the ability to perceive, understand, and react to environment events. That is why the nervous system is so extremely important for human behavior. Advanced organisms have specialized sense organs, which are designed to react to stimuli. These are often called receptors and are sensitive to one stimulus. Example, skin to touch, eyes to light patterns, etc. The changes in the environment to which living organisms respond are called stimuli. Living organisms respond to stimuli in the form of body movements. Example, heat, cold, sound, smell, pressure, gravity, water, etc. The reaction or action of organisms in reply to the stimulus is called a response. For a proper response to stimulus, many organs in the body should work together. The working together of various organs in an organism to produce proper response to a stimulus is called coordination. In animals, control and coordination is done by the nervous system and the endocrine system. A neuron is a unit of the nervous system. The nerve cell or neuron is the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. Neuron is a highly specialized cell which is responsible for transmission of nerve impulses. The neuron consists of the following parts: A. Cyton or cell body. The cell body, that is soma or cyton, is somewhat star-shaped, containing a nucleus and cytoplasm. It has many hair-like structures protruding out of the margin. These hair-like structures are called dendrites. Dendrites bring information to the cell body. B. Axon. The neuron has a long nerve fiber called the axon. This is the tail of the neuron. It ends in several hair-like structures called axon terminals. The axon takes information away from the cell body. Bundles of axons are known as nerves, or within the CNS, that is central nervous system, as nerve tracts or pathways. C. Myelin sheath. Myelin coats and insulates the axon, except for periodic breaks called nodes of Ranvier, increasing transmission speed along the axon. Myelin is manufactured by Schwann cells and consists of 70 to 80% of lipids, that is fats, and 20 to 30% protein. D. The junction between the axon and the dendrites of the next neuron is called the synapse. At the synapse, the axon fibers and dendrites are not in direct contact. The space between them is called synaptic cleft. Within the axons are synaptic vesicles having chemicals called neurotransmitters. Messages pass through the nerve cells in the form of chemical and electrical signals called nerve impulses. The dendrites receive the information and start a chemical reaction which produces electrical impulse which passes through the axon. Types of neurons. Sensory neuron. Sensory nerves carry messages from the sense organs, that is eyes, ears, etc., to the brain or spinal cord. Examples are retinal cells, olfactory epithelium cells, etc. Motor nerve. Motor nerves carry messages back from the brain or spinal cord to all the muscles and glands in the body. Examples are spinal motor neurons, pyramidal neurons, Purkinje cells. Interneurons or mixed cells. The neurons present in the brain that connects the sensory and the motor neurons are called interneurons or mixed neurons. Examples are dorsal root ganglia cells. Reflex. Reflex actions are the ones which happen spontaneously without involving the brain. The brain doesn't have control over this action. It is monitored through the spinal cord. A knee-jerk, coughing, yawning, blinking of eyes, sneezing, salivation, movement of diaphragm during breathing are all examples of reflex actions. The reflex arc is the nerve pathway which enables a quick split-second response to take place in response to a dangerous stimulus in human beings. Hence, when your finger accidentally touches a hot vessel, sensory neurons are excited, which then pass on electrical impulse to the spinal cord. The spinal cord then activates a motor neuron which causes the arm to move away quickly. The entire pathway is known as a reflex arc. Here, there is no processing of the information in the brain to garner a response. Schematic pathway. Parts of the human nervous system. Central nervous system. The central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain controls all the functions in the human body. The spinal cord works as the relay channel for signals between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is composed of the cranial nerves, that is, nerves coming from the brain, and spinal nerves, that is, nerves coming from spinal cord. It assists in the transmitting information between central nervous system and rest of the body. Autonomous nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is located in the base of the brain or brain stem and controls all the involuntary actions like breathing and beating of the heart in the human body. The autonomous nervous system can be divided into two parts. A. Sympathetic nervous system. This part of the autonomous nervous system heightens the activity of an organ as per the need. Example, during running, there is an increased demand for oxygen by the body. This is fulfilled by an increased breathing rate and increased heart rate. The sympathetic nervous system works to increase the breathing rate and the heart rate in this case. B. Parasympathetic nervous system. This part of the autonomous nervous system slows down the activity of an organ and thus has a calming effect. During sleep, the breathing rate slows down and so does the heart rate. This is facilitated by the parasympathetic nervous system. It can be said that the parasympathetic nervous system helps in conservation of energy. Somatic nervous system. The somatic nervous system responsible for all voluntary muscle movements as well as for processing sensory information including hearing, touch, and sight. Central nervous system. It is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, which is the continuation of the brain. Brain and spinal cord are surrounded by membranes called the meninges. There are three layers: outermost dura mater, middle arachnoid, and the inner pia mater. The space between the arachnoid and pia mater is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid, that is CSF. It acts as a shock absorber. An infection of the meninges is called meningitis. Parts of nervous system. Peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system consists of the cranial and spinal nerves. Cranial nerves. Cranial nerves are those that connect the different parts of the body to the brain. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. These may be sensory, example, olfactory, that is smell, or optic, that is sight, or auditory, that is hearing, motor, example, hypoglossal movement of the tongue, trochlear, that is eyeball movement, or mixed, example, speech, swallowing, peristalsis, or facial, taste, expression, or saliva secretion. The spinal nerves originate from the spinal cord. All spinal nerves carry impulses to and from the central nervous system. Spinal nerves are mixed nerves. The autonomous nervous system includes motor nerves that control involuntary actions like breathing, beating of the heart, and peristaltic movements of the alimentary canal. Voluntary actions like muscle movement and blinking of the eyelid are carried out by the somatic nervous system. Central nervous system. Spinal cord. The spinal cord extends from the medulla of the brain through the whole length of the vertebral column and is protected by the vertebral column or backbone. It carries messages to and fro from the brain. It also controls reflex action. The spinal cord has two major functions: A. Carrying information, and B. Coordinating reflexes. First, it receives sensory information through the afferent nerves from the sensory receptors throughout the body and sends them to the brain. It also carries information from the brain through afferent fibers to the muscles and glands. Second, it coordinates reflexes without the involvement of the brain. Thus, the spinal cord has both communicative and integrative functions. Parts of the central nervous system. Brain. Human brain is a highly complex organ, which is mainly composed of the nervous tissue. The tissues are highly folded to accommodate a large surface area in less space. The brain is covered by a three-layered system of membranes called meninges. Cerebrospinal fluid is filled between the meninges. The CSF, that is, cerebrospinal fluid, provides cushions to the brain against mechanical shocks. Furthermore, the brain is housed inside the skull called cranium for optimum protection. The human brain can be divided into three regions, viz. Forebrain, made up of cerebrum, hypothalamus and thalamus. Midbrain and hindbrain consists of cerebellum, bones and medulla oblongata. Parts of the brain. Forebrain. Cerebrum. It is the most complex and largest part of the brain. It is the thinking part of the brain and controls voluntary actions. It is the site of our faculties such as learning, reasoning, intelligence, personality and memory. All our thoughts, sensations, actions and movements are controlled by cerebrum. The cerebrum has different areas for performing different functions. The cerebrum has sensory areas, associated areas, and motor areas. Number 1. Sensory area. The information is received from the sense organs like eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin and gives sensation of feelings. Number 2. Motor area. Instructions are sent to various organs or muscles to do various types of activities. Number 3. Association areas. They register and store information and respond by interpreting past experiences. They are associated with reasoning, learning, and intelligence. The outer layer of the cerebrum is called cerebral cortex and is often referred to as grey matter of the brain. The cerebral cortex can be divided into Number 1. Occipital lobe, sense of sight. Injury can produce hallucinations. Number 2. Temporal lobe, senses of smell and sound, as well as processing of complex stimuli like faces and scenes. Number 3. Parietal lobe, plays important roles in integrating sensory information from the various senses and in the manipulation of objects. Portions of the parietal lobe are involved with visuospatial processing, that is pertaining to the ability to understand visual representations and their spatial relationships. Number 4. Frontal lobe, conscious thought. Damage can result in mood changes, social differences, etc. The frontal lobes are the most uniquely human of all the brain structures. Number 5. Limbic lobe, emotion, memory. Number 6. Insular cortex, pain, some other senses, etc. Thalamus. It is an area which coordinates the sensory impulses from the various sense organs like eyes, ears, and skin, and then relays it to the cerebrum. Hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, thought a small region situated below the thalamus. It is an important region of the brain. It controls hunger and thirst, coordinates messages from the autonomous nervous system, controls the heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, that is homeostasis, and peristalsis. It also forms an axis with the pituitary, which is the main link between the nervous and the endocrine systems. It also has centers that control mood and emotions. Parts of the brain. Midbrain. It is a small portion of the brain that serves as a relay center for sensory information from the ears to the cerebrum. It also controls the reflex movements of the head, neck, and eye muscles. It provides a passage for the different neurons going in and coming out of the cerebrum. Parts of the brain. Hindbrain. Cerebellum. The cerebellum is the second largest division of the brain. The cerebellum coordinates muscular activities and maintains balance and posture. It is also responsible for precision and fine control of the voluntary movements. Pons. It acts as a bridge carrying all sensory and motor neurons between brain and spinal cord. It passes on information to the cerebellum and cerebrum. Also regulates respiration. Medulla oblongata is located in the posterior most part of the brain and continues into spinal cord. The medulla oblongata has reflex centers to control activities like swallowing, coughing, sneezing, vomiting, heartbeat, and breathing, etc. It also functions in signaling sleep.
Coordination. In plant animals have a nervous system for controlling and coordinating the activities of the body. But plants have neither a nervous system nor muscles. So, how do they respond to stimuli? When we touch the leaves of a chui mui, the sensitive or touch-me-not plant of the mimosa family, they begin to fold up and droop. When a seed germinates, the root goes down, the stem comes up into the air. What happens? Firstly, the leaves of the sensitive plant move very quickly in response to touch. There is no growth involved in this movement. On the other hand, the directional movement of a seedling is caused by growth. If it is prevented from growing, it will not show any movement. So plants show two different types of movement, one independent on growth and the other dependent of growth. Independent growth, immediate response to stimulus. The best example of independent growth in plants is the touch-me-not plant. We have already seen that when we touch it, it begins to fold up and droop. This type of movement or coordination does not require growth. This is actually quick response to stimulus where the leaves responds to touch. Have you ever visited sunflower farm during day and night? Observe the difference in the images shown here. The movement of sunflowers during daytime is towards the sun and during night it is away from the sun. Also, this movement is independent of growth. The plants also use electrical chemical means to convey information from cell to cell, but unlike in animals, there is no specialized tissue in plants for the conduction of information. Dependent growth movement due to growth. Have you seen tendrils? Why tendrils are formed? Some plants like the pea plant climb up other plants or fences by means of tendrils. These tendrils are sensitive to touch. When they come in contact with any support, the part of the tendril in contact with the object does not grow as rapidly as the part of the tendril away from the object. This causes the tendril to circle around the object and thus cling to it. Such movements are trophic movements. Plants respond to stimuli slowly by growing in a particular direction. This is called as dependent growth. Fill a conical flask with water. Cover the neck of the flask with a wire mesh. Keep 2 or 3 freshly germinated bean seeds on the wire mesh. Take a cardboard box which is open from one side. Keep the flask in the box in such a manner that the open side of the box faces light coming from a window. After 2 or 3 days, you will notice that the shoots bend towards light and roots away from light. Environmental triggers such as light or gravity will change the directions that plant paths. Plants show tropism in response to other stimuli as well. The roots of a plant always grow downwards while the shoots usually grow upwards and away from the earth. This upward and downward growth of shoots and roots, respectively, in response to the pull of earth or gravity is, obviously, geotropism. If hydro means water and chemo refers to chemicals, what would hydrotropism and chemotropism mean? One example of chemotropism is the growth of pollen tubes towards ovules, about which we will learn more when we examine the reproductive processes of living organisms. Our arms and fingers grow in certain directions, not haphazardly. So controlled movements can be either slow or fast. Electrical impulses are an excellent means of information transfer. Firstly, they will reach only those cells that are connected by nervous tissue, not each and every cell in the animal body. Secondly, once an electrical impulse is generated in a cell and transmitted, the cell will take some time to reset its mechanisms before it can generate and transmit a new impulse. In other words, cells cannot continually create and transmit electrical impulses. It is thus no wonder that most multicellular organisms use another means of communication between cells, namely, chemical communication. If, instead of generating an electrical impulse, stimulated cells release a chemical compound, this compound would diffuse all around the original cell. This will be slower, of course, but it can potentially reach all cells of the body, regardless of nervous connections, and it can be done steadily and persistently. These compounds, or hormones used by multicellular organisms for control and coordination show a great deal of diversity, as we would expect. Different plant hormones help to coordinate growth, development and responses to the environment. They are synthesized at places away from where they act and simply diffuse to the area of action. Let us take an example. When growing plants detect light, a hormone called auxin, synthesized at the shoot tip, helps the cells to grow longer. When light falls on one side of the plant, auxin diffuses towards the shady side of the shoot. This concentration of auxin stimulates the cells to grow longer on the side of the shoot which is away from light. Thus, the plant appears to bend towards light. Gibberellins help in the growth of the stem. Cytokinins promote cell division, and it is natural then that they are present in greater concentration in areas of rapid cell division, such as in fruits and seeds. These are examples of plant hormones that help in promoting growth. But plants also need signals to stop growing. Abscisic acid is one example of a hormone which inhibits growth. Its effects include wilting of leaves. Hormones in animals, we have seen that plant hormones control their directional growth. What functions do animal hormones perform? We have never seen an animal growing more in one direction or the other, depending on light or gravity. But growth happens in carefully controlled places. Plants will grow leaves in many places on the plant body, for example. But we do not grow fingers on our faces. The chemicals that are secreted in animals, which are involved in control and coordination, are called as hormones. These are secreted by endocrine glands. All endocrine glands together forms endocrine system. Hormones secreted by endocrine glands are directly released into the blood. There are 8 endocrine glands in human body. Hypothalamus, pineal gland, pituitary gland, thyroid and parathyroid gland. Thymus, pancreas, adrenal gland, testes, ovaries. Let us learn about them in detail. Hypothalamus is located in forebrain. It is the main center of endocrine system. Pineal gland is located in forebrain and secretes luteinizing and follicle-stimulating hormone. Oxytocin and other hormones. Brings ovulation and maintains corpus luteum. Oxytocin in uterine contraction and releasing breast milk. Dwarfism is a condition which arises if sufficient growth hormone is not secreted by pituitary gland during childhood, but if excessive growth hormone is secreted, the person will suffer from giantism. Thyroid and parathyroid gland is located near windpipe or trachea. It secretes thyroxine hormone which controls carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism. Iodine is necessary to secrete thyroxine hormone so as to provide the best balance for growth. In case iodine is deficient in our diet, there is a possibility that we might suffer from goiter. One of the symptoms in this disease is a swollen neck. Thymus is located on trachea nearer to the heart. Regulates sugar level in blood. If it is not secreted in proper amounts, the sugar level in the blood rises, causing many harmful effects. Pancreas is located below stomach. It produces insulin. Insulin regulates sugar level in blood. If it is not secreted in proper amounts, the sugar level in the blood rises, causing many harmful effects. Adrenal gland is located above kidneys and secretes adrenaline. It prepares the body to deal with emergency situations. Testes is a male sex organs. It produces testosterone which cause development of sexual organs and secondary sexual characteristics in male. Ovaries is a female sex organs. It produces estrogen which cause development of sexual organs and secondary sexual characteristics in female. If it is so important that hormones should be secreted in precise quantities, we need a mechanism through which this is done. The timing and amount of hormone released are regulated by feedback mechanisms. For example, if the sugar levels in blood rise, they are detected by the cells of the pancreas which respond by producing more insulin. As the blood sugar level falls, insulin secretion is reduced.